Tonight I'm going to do something in the beginning that I haven't done before. Well, once. I'm going to read a poem, and it's an ode to Brother Blue and to Ruth. I gave it to them about 1.5 years ago. Right. And it's Tuesday night. It's about 7:05. I enter the room, and nobody looks up. All eyes are on the brother. He's carrying on as if he were the brother. I have no idea what he's saying. The words just don't seem to come together. Doesn't matter. Brother Blue is my spiritual Alan Greenspan. Who is this man who takes the stage every Tuesday night? And where does this man go on Wednesday night? Who is this man who makes music with his harmonica and rhythm with his fingers? And where does this man go on Thursday night? Who is this man who listens to some good material and his share of bad material, but he praises it all? And where does he go on Friday night? Who is this man that holds our group of weirdos and lovers together? And where does he go on Saturday night? Who is this man who brings his mama to us? We weep for her and then for him. And where does he go on Sunday night? Who is this man who tells us tales of his brother? We laugh and we cry with him. And where does he go on Monday night? And who is this man who looks at Ruth as if it were his first dance? And where do they go on Wednesday night? Who is this woman who sits stoically beside Blue, listening, her face implacable, and then her smile? I throw a 95-yard touchdown. Ruth smiles. I'm in the Super Bowl. I made Ruth smile. Who is this woman? Oh, and what do they do on Thursday night? Who is this woman who, when directing me to their apartment and I missed a turn, yelled, "Are you deaf?" I threw another touchdown. I made Ruth yell. And what do they do on Friday night? Who is this woman we call Ruth? Oh yeah, we celebrate the courage of Rosa Parks, and with good reason. But Ruth tells us when our time is up, and that takes more courage than most have. And what do they do on Saturday night? Do they eat? Do they drink? Do they go to the movies? Do they take long walks? Do they? And where do they go on Sunday night? Do they have plans to dispose of us? To send us far away so they'll never ever have to hear even one more story? Is this where they go on Monday night? And where would we go on Tuesday night if they didn't do what they do every Tuesday night? We love you both for all you give to us, including my name, Robear. Thank you so much. And I'm going to read actually another poem, and this poem was written by somebody I don't know. It was actually brought to the writers group that I belong to forever, and it just struck me as so interesting and so true, and so much of the part of the times that I had to read it. It's called In the Men. Want back in. All the Dougs and the Michaels, the Darnells, the Erics and Jose's, they're standing by the off-ramps of the interstate, holding up cardboard signs that say, "We'll work for relationship." Their love mobiles are rusty. Their shagging wagons are up on cinder blocks. They're reading self-help books and practicing abstinence, taking out personal ads that say, "Good listener would like to meet lesbian ladies for purposes of friendship only." In short, they've changed their mind, the men. They want another shot at the collaborative enterprise, want to do 50-50 housework and childcare. They want commitment, renewal, weekends, and couple therapy, because being a man was finally too sad. In spite of the perks, the lifetime membership benefits, it all got old, telling the joke about the hooker and the priest. At the company barbecue, praising the vintage of the beer and punching the shoulders of a bud, in a little overflow of homosocial bonhomie, always holding the fear inside like a tipsy glass of water. Now they're ready to talk, really talk about their feelings. In fact, they're ready to make you sick with revelations of their vulnerability. A pool of testosterone is spreading from around their feet. It's draining out of them like radiator fluid, like history, like an experiment that failed. So here they come, on their hands and knees, the men. Here they come. They're really beaten. No tricks this time. No fine print. Please, they're begging. You look out. The men. Anyhow, tonight I'm going to do a couple of stories. And the theme of it is unrequited love goes both ways. And the first story I'll tell is a story I've told quite some time ago. I think it's one of the first stories I told here, and it's called The Practice Run. When I was 13, I was madly in love with all my friends' mothers. To me, they were the epitome of beauty. They were fashionable. They were gorgeous in every way. Everything about them was exquisite. They were the perfect age, somewhere in their late 30s, maybe early 40s. But best of all, they had done it. I knew that. Their kids were living proof. I would have done anything to make love to them. And I was going to go about it. I was going to figure out how. You see, I checked out the competition, their husbands, my friends' fathers. They were losers. They were also in their 40s, and they were getting bald and paunchy. They were busy washing their cars, or listening to the Red Sox games. Viagra hadn't come along yet. And here I was, a 13-year-old fireball. I knew they would recognize me if given the opportunity, so I had to have a strategy. And I thought to myself, what could I do? Maybe I would find out when one of my friends weren't going to be home, and I'd go over their house and tell their mom that I was waiting for them. I would have to strike up a conversation, but what on earth could I talk to them about? I didn't know anything. Basically, all I cared about was what was for dinner and what kind of ball game I was going to play that day. I'm sure that they were much more sophisticated, and they were, after all, in their late 30s and early 40s, so the talk might be difficult, but I would cut around that. They would surely recognize in me, this little fireball, what I could do, especially if they coached me. Well, it didn't actually happen, but my opportunity finally came. What happened was, my oldest brother moved back to Boston, and he bought a two-family house in Newton. And the reason that he bought this two-family house was that his sister-in-law, his wife's sister, had lost her husband. She was going to live on the upstairs, and he was going to live on the downstairs and help her with her children. I volunteered to babysit whenever he would need me. You see, she wasn't exactly my type. She was a little young for my taste. She was in her early 30s, which didn't exactly turn me on as much as the late 30s, but she had a vacancy. She was missing a husband, and I certainly could fill the role. So I would babysit for my brother every opportunity I got. And I would listen at the wall as she came down the steps with all her lovers or dates. And I would listen to the panting and the long kisses and the sighs. And I knew she knew I was there. And I'd watch the guys go outside, and I wasn't impressed by them any more than I was by my friends' fathers. They were also in their 40s, and they were getting bald, and they were paunchy. And as I said, there was no Viagra. So they didn't show me anything. Well, it happened one night. There was a knock on the door. I opened the door, and she was there. Tank top, shorts, looking magnificent, even though she was only about 30. And she said, "I know your brother smokes. I'm out of matches. I need a match." A match? Oh my God. A metaphor for hot. A metaphor for getting together. She wants me. I can tell. She's practically raping me. A match? Huh, that's easy. I ran into the kitchen and I flew back. She said, "Would you light my cigarette?" Light her cigarette? Oh my God, she was telling me exactly what she wanted. Light my fire, she was saying. She wanted me so bad she couldn't even express it in words. With my shaking hands, I lit her a cigarette. Her eyes never came off me. And finally she took a long drag of the cigarette, and she looked at me and she said, I know what you're thinking. Oh, really? It's not going to happen. You can think it as much as you want. It's not going to happen. Maybe sometime, when you get a little older, it might. But it's not going to happen tonight. I didn't care. I said goodnight to her. I was just as happy. Now I could go back to my homework and get something done. And that's the story of my practice run. And when I was 13, and unrequited love goes both ways. Second story is called Butchie, a.k.a. Sonny. I told this some time ago, too. Butchie grew up across the street from me. And there's no other way to describe Butchie except as disgusting. He was basically primitive. He smelled like an ape. He looked like an ape. There was nothing I could say about Butchie that was good, including the fact that Butchie was my older brother's best friend. And my older brother and I did not get along in those days at all. And Butchie had as much use for me as my older brother did, which was none. As a matter of fact, whenever he looked at me, he would sneer. I didn't even know what the sneer meant, but he would sneer. Thank goodness I didn't have to see much of them, either my older brother or Butchie, because most of the time they were lying under cars and you could barely see their heads sticking out. They saw themselves as some sort of auto mechanics. I had no use for cars. I was always running around to this game and that game, playing ball here and there. And it was just as well because I had no use for them and they had no use for me. Now, Butchie lived directly across from me. The house on the left harbored the Sides. Mrs. Side was the epitome of what I was just talking about in the practice run. She was probably 40 years old, flawless. That's what I called her, flawless. Perfect. And of course she had a magnificent daughter and a son who I more or less grew up with and had been friends with. But unfortunately, Mrs. Side sent Lewis, who was my friend, over my house when there was reason to believe that he had German measles. And so my mother then had a feud with the Sides. I was never allowed to talk to the Sides again. I had what you called long-distance lust, long-distance languishing. I was in love with Mrs. Side even more than the daughter Ruthie. Well, years passed. I wouldn't say we grew up, but we did get older. And Butchie took what he knew best and opened a service station not far from where we lived, fixing automobiles. I was probably 18 or 19, and I bought a fifth-handed MG. It overheated in the summer and wouldn't start in the winter. I spent a tremendous amount of time with Butchie. But Butchie was no longer Butchie. He was now Sonny. He called his station Sonny. And did he have respect? Because now he could be as grubby as he wanted. He didn't have to shave. He could smell as bad as he wanted to. He didn't have to wash. He fixed automobiles. So it didn't matter how dirty and grubby Butchie Sonny was. And people would come in and he would intimidate them. He would say to them, "Did you take your car somewhere before you came here?" And they would invariably lie and say, no, 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 Sonny. He now became Sonny. More respect than Butchie. And say, no, 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 no. No, I didn't. My brother-in-law looked at it, but he didn't really touch it. He better not have, Sonny would say, because anybody who takes their car anywhere before they take it here, I'm not fixing it. He was nicer to the women who came in. I had to bring my car there almost every week. It was the MG that didn't run in the summer or the winter. He called it a sewing machine on wheels. And once again, when I would bring it in, he would sneer at me when I came in and sneer at me when I left. Well, once again, the years went by. Once again, we grew older, probably not smarter. And my brother and Sonny still stayed friends. In fact, Sonny made probably so much money overcharging repairing cars because nobody knew what they should fix, what they should actually cost in those days to fix. He moved to Florida. And my brother, probably now 10 or 15 years later, decided to have a party and invite all his old friends. And by this time, my brother and I had become friends. So I, too, was included in the party. And when I entered, I didn't see too many people I knew. But I saw Butchie, Sonny. And I went over to him. And after all these years, I still didn't know what to say. How's Florida? It's good. How's everything else going with you? Good. Are you still fixing cars down there? I never did. I retired. I was at a loss for words. Finally, I said, didn't we live in a neighborhood with a lot of lovely people? He sneered. He knew exactly where I was going. And he said, are you talking about Mrs. Side? How did he know? How did he know? Could he read my face? Could he read my mind? He said, I made love to Mrs. Side. This hairball, this primitive, prehistoric ape, made love to this incredible, flawless woman? This made love to Mrs. Side? Couldn't have happened. I left it. I went over to my brother, who was quite a distance away, and I said, Butchie, Sonny, just told me an amazing thing. And my brother was, talking to other people, and he saw this as somewhat disruptive, and he said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, you're not going to believe what I'm going to tell you. So he said, well, tell me anyway. I said, Butchie said he slept with Mrs. Side. Like you said, my brother said, I don't believe it. What makes you think it's true? I don't know, I said. There was something about the way he said it that seemed to ring of truth. How could it possibly be that this human being who's barely human could have made love to the beautiful Mrs. Side? He looked at me, my brother did, and he said, well, maybe he fixed her car. And he didn't charge her. I don't know, he said. Do you believe that he did it? I don't know. It sounded like he did it. Well, once again, the years went by. And once again, we got older. And my brother called me. And he said, bad news about Sonny. I just heard that he's on his deathbed down in Florida. I said to my brother, are you going to go down there? He said, I've spoken to him every day, but I can't get down there. I have some very, very important meetings this week. I said, where is he in Florida? He told me exactly where he was. I rushed to the airport. I had to know the truth. I figured on his deathbed, I would find out the truth. Now, you know when you go to the airport and you don't have a ticket in advance, they don't know how much to charge. I didn't care. I was going to pay anything. And I did. Same thing when I got down there and rented a car. I had no reservation. I didn't care what I paid. I drove to the hospital and I found Butchie, aka Sonny's room. Tubes were everywhere. There was a priest in the room. I couldn't say, "How's it going?" I couldn't say, "How are you?" But he looked up at me, and once again, he sneered at me. And he called the nurse over and pointed at a pen. And he scribbled down something. And he folded it up. And he handed it to the nurse, who handed it to me. And I didn't open it until I got on the plane. But when I opened it on the plane, it said, "I did, you didn't." And that's the story of Butchie, aka Sonny, and Robear. Unrequited. It was about 5 or 6 weeks ago when somebody here named Jack was talking about women and men. And he said that women make up their minds in 5 minutes, yes or no. I said to myself, women make up their minds in 5 seconds and just pray the guy doesn't say anything stupid. Men, on the other hand, make up their mind in 1 second and they don't care how stupid she is. Not even a little bit. Well, this made me think of when I was young and when I was in New York, of selling, buyers and sellers. And I remembered that as a single guy, I was always selling and trying to figure out if they were buying, because they never told you. You had to figure it out, yes or no. And it was up to you to know, to read behind the lines. And to tell you the truth, I wasn't so good at it. When I thought it was yes, it was no, and when it was no, it was yes. But then, later in life, I got into a very rare position. And that happened years and years ago before I started going to China, and I went to Taiwan. And in Taiwan, invariably, when I would check into a hotel and go up to my room, and before I put my bag down, the phone would ring. And it would be some man calling on the phone saying, "I have beautiful girl, lobby, send her right up, only 150 US. And I'd say, pretty good price, but I don't think so. And then I would say to myself, there had to be a better way to sell. For instance, they could have said, "I have beautiful girl in the lobby, and she saw you walk in, and she thinks you are so special that she wants to come up for nothing. I, on the other hand, need 150 US for introduction." Now that would be a sale, maybe. But this would put guys in a position that they're never in, as buyers, and somebody else doing the selling. And most recently in November, when I was in China, I checked into my hotel, and as I came into the hotel lobby, on the far right as I entered was a new cafe, a wine bar. Perfect. I love wine, and at 11 o'clock at night, when I have jet lag, because when it's 11 o'clock at night in China, depending upon whether it's daylight saving or standard saving, it's either 13 or 12 hours difference. So it's really, let's say it's 11 o'clock at night. In China, it's 11 in the morning. So it's difficult to sleep. And you've been going 23 hours, and it's practically impossible. So this would be wonderful. I'd come down to the bar, I'd have a glass of wine, maybe 2, and then I'd be able to sleep. Well, that's exactly what I did. At about 11:30, I came down to the bar, and I looked up at the TV that was playing what looked like Chinese MTV. It had some young girls singing and dancing, and certainly caught my eye. Next to the bar, just not blocking my vision, were a pair of crossed legs. Didn't see a body, didn't see a head, I just saw crossed legs. Well, in about 5 minutes after I was watching and had ordered my wine, the crossed legs became uncrossed and strode over to my table. They stood in front of me, now attached to a body and head, very attractive. And she looked at her watch, and then she looked at me as if I were late. As if I had an appointment that I didn't know about, and she wasn't happy because I was late. She sat down as if she were perfectly welcome. She must have thought that I was staring at her when I was looking at the TV because she was right to the left of it. And she said, "My name Helen. What yours?" I said, "My name is Robert." She said, "Wobbit. Very nice name." I said, "Thank you." She said, "Where you from?" I said, "I'm from Boston, Mass." She said, "I'll never go there." I said, "Well, if you come, maybe you can come visit my wife and me." She said, "Oh, you're married." I said, "Yes, I'm married." She said, "Oh," she said, "I didn't know you were married." I said, "Yeah, I'm married. I've been married a long time. Very nice woman I'm married to." She said, "Oh, well, I don't mind." She said, I said, "Well, did you think about marrying me?" She said, "Well," she said, "maybe we go up to the room and I find out whether I want to marry you or not." I said, "Well," I said, "I'm not sure about that." She said, "Well," she said, "you have Chinese wife, you have American wife. Nobody knows. Only me. I don't tell anybody." I said, "Well," I said, "I'm not sure that would work too well because I would know." She said, "Well, I won't tell anybody, just you." She said, "We go to a room and we see very soon. We talk, we laugh, maybe we get married." I said, "No, I'm not sure about that." So she said, and meanwhile, while she's saying this, you have to see this. She's sitting in a chair, and she's crossing her legs, and she's hiking up her skirt until there's practically nothing left to hike. At the same time, while she's doing that, she's looking at me and she's going like that, and I'm supposed to be seduced. Well, I'm not. I'm not even getting close to being seduced. I'm just thinking to myself, when she says it's 1,300 RMB, which is their currency, I'm thinking to myself, I'm converting it, and I'm saying, that's about 200 US. And what could I spend it on in the US that wouldn't get me this wet? And she says, only 1,300 RMB. We go to the room, we have a good time. And I say, finally, I'm very tired. I'm really tired. I've had a long flight. But I'm thinking it's Tuesday night. And I'm thinking that at Brother Blues, there'd be a feature, right? And I would pay for the feature, right? So I think she's been my feature, right? So I owe her something. So I give her some money, and I'm thinking to myself, at my age, that's not too bad. How many times am I going to be a buyer left? And I don't think either a seller. So I said goodnight. I thanked her for the performance, and like I said, I gave her some money, just like I would have at Brother Blues. And that's all I can say about buyers and sellers. The last story I have is Forever and Ever. I think the only one here who's heard that is Michael, and Brother Blue did hear it. I've only told it once. And the way this story works is I met her at a Dairy Queen. Or maybe it was a dairy witch, or maybe it was a dairy king. I don't think it matters much. It was a beautiful summer day, and she was sitting outside. She was wearing an orange tank top and black shorts, and she was eating what I thought was a banana split. She had 3 flavors of ice cream. She had my 3 favorites: chocolate chip, mocha chip, and pistachio, it looked like, and bananas and strawberry on top. And I went over to her, and I was extremely attracted to her, but I really didn't know what to say. I didn't want to say, "Do you come here often?" because that would have implied that she was maybe a little heavy and a Dairy Queen. So I stayed away from that. And I thought, why don't I get right to the point? Why don't I just say exactly what's on my mind? And I said, I've been married twice. Would you be my 3rd wife forever and ever? She looked up like she got this kind of question every day. There was no surprise. And she said, well, she said, I'd be a little concerned about that because I feel like I might be in competition with your first 2 wives. And I said, oh, don't be worried about that at all. I know that you would be far preferable to either one of them. She looked at me and she said, how can you possibly know that? You don't know anything about me. You don't. But I could tell. I could tell by the fact that she was actually looking up from this beautiful, magnificent banana split and spending all this time looking at me, that she had fallen in love, as I had. So we had a rapport. And she said, how can you possibly know this? And I said, I can tell by the way you're eating your banana split. She said, that's impossible. You can't know that about me from eating a banana split. You don't know anything about me. And besides, it's not a banana split. They call it bananas on ice here. So there. I was taken aback, but I wasn't to be stopped. I said, I know that you would be far superior to either one of my first 2 wives. She said, but you don't even know my name. You don't even know if I'm married. She said, but it is your lucky day. And she got kind of a little grin on her face. And she said, I just lost my husband yesterday. He had a mishap. I don't think I want to discuss it. I went right through that. Mishap didn't bother me. I said, did you have any children? She said, no, thank goodness. We talked about it, but we didn't. I said, well, how long were you married? She said, I don't know. Maybe it was 3 years, maybe it was 4 years. I'm not sure. I stopped counting after the first few months. She said, well, what about your first 2 wives? I said, the first one, we were married only about 6 months. And we were having breakfast one day, and she said, I'm not sure if she said, I want my space or I need my space. But in either case, I looked around the apartment, and I thought it was pretty good size. But I said to her, that's not a problem. We'll talk about it tonight when you come home. When I came home, there was a post-stick. And the post-stick said, you were right, it's not a problem. I'm out of here. Don't call, don't write. She looked up and she said, oh my God, she said, that's awful. How did you take that? I said, well, it bothered me for about a day, but I got over it. And I got married again. She said, well, did your second wife want more space? I said, no, we were married 13 and a half years. And I hate to say it, but she ran off with the local cobbler. I shouldn't say ran off because they're living right down at the bottom of the street. I could say he nailed her. But that's a bad joke, I know. And what happened is I should have been more suspicious because she was taking her shoes down there every week. And she would come home and say, that cobbler's so cute and he's so funny. He would ask if I want the soles al dente. Isn't that hysterical? I didn't think it was funny. And then he would sing to her songs like O Sole Mio. And she thought that was so clever. I didn't. But anyhow, that's what happened to her. And I looked at her and I said, how's Saturday? She said, for what? Oh, I said, Saturday's not good. It would be better Friday. And she said, for what? I said, for getting married. And she said, oh my goodness, you're so romantic. You really know how to win a girl over. And I said, well, why don't you meet me at the courthouse Friday afternoon, downtown, at 12 o'clock. She looked up and she said, don't forget your license, and remember, it's forever and ever. Quarter after.
Folks, this is your style and the way you look. Now that's a poem. Funny, sad, and very sophisticated. And you took your time.
I took their time.
But you know, that'd be a nice thing to read, to ponder. It's so real. It would be. You could tell that in a special place with their candles, and because it's very mellow. You like the word mellow? It's like you're a poet.
The awful thing is they just got divorced.
Oh, that's the point.
3 months later, they found out they couldn't stand each other. They liked different flavors.
But you know, that's the kind of the story of all lovers.
It happens immediately or it doesn't, right, Brother Boo?
And you have this. Now, this is quite the way you look today. I thought, well, here I speak of elegance. Here you're like a little boy. You see the way he looks? Looks like a little boy. And,
Posing as an old man.
many women would say, come on, take this little boy and take care of him. You're very poetic. You're one of these guys.
Like I said,
who
brother.
hard. You love hard.
Like I said, Brother Blue, I always read them wrong.
You have like a little boy who falls in love. By the way, I'm gonna risk it. Take a chance. Story of all of us. In us, there's the animal. The greatest thing in the world the animal wants to do is, I won't use the word. It's fundamental. That's how we get babies. But with that is a sensibility. And this thing in you, the two together, it's very. It's the kind of story you would tell them a place where they drink fine wine. What's that?
Can I ask Robear a question?
Sure.
Yes.
When you were 13, you had lust for 40-year-old women.
Oh, yeah.
How do you feel about what's in the news about the 14-year-old kid and the 22-year-old teacher?
Jealous. Very jealous. Where was I? Where was she? They weren't around for me. Yeah, when I was 13 or 14, yeah, I was.
Do you think laws should be changed? Laws should be changed so that kind of thing would be legal?
To be legal?
Yeah, it might be legal in France or Italy or some other country.
I don't get into laws.
All little boys fall in love with the mothers of their friends.
Is that true?
Mama, we want mama. We don't love.
I wasn't the only one?
No, not the same with me. Look, when I was a soldier, when I was a young wildcat, and my friends always loved their mothers.
I was about 18 at the time.
We all do. You know why? Heaven is. Heaven is. Heaven is. Heaven is. Heaven is. Inside your mother. Where all your needs were met, she took care of you, heard that heart. And she loved you unconditionally. You were so tired. When you were captain of the world out of that sea, you were lost. We want our mother! Love was unconditional.
Probably do.
While the average young man falls in love with a woman, he wants to go back and he wants to be a sailor no more. They don't allow it. Poor You all looking for Mama. What else is, what's happening? Carry you. I'll tell you what I found. Every time I had a friend, especially when I was in theological school, all the guys felt like their mother's wife. Good. You want your mama? You're not answering the question. How many of you men? Oh, that's a room. Read down in your mama, mother. How many of them? Oh, come on. You want to fall for mother. That's basic. So anyway, by the way, I hope you don't mind, I don't want to take too long on this. What I like about this guy, he's gone through it.
It's gone through me.
Well, not because you're a romantic. Look, I can tell there's a romantic man here who enters love. And do you like Sinatra singing?
And Mrs. Side together, yeah.
You like the singing of who's this guy who sang for San Francisco?
Oh, Tony Bennett.
You like Tony Bennett?
I like Dean Martin better.
I do it too.
Yeah, he was cooler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you ladies,
I know, he's supposed to be the singer, but I like Dean Martin because he was so cool. But I know a lot of people who know more about music than I do didn't like him, but I liked his coolness. Yeah. Yeah.
have that look about you.
I wish, Brother Blue, I wish I did.
Now, before I go, I don't want to overdo this thing. No, I like your style very much. I'm wondering where is your best. Well, you know what's important, storyteller? To find your venue, to find the people who are on your wavelength. You could be great, but if it's not the right thing. See, there's something in you which is kind of a...
We've been watching you, Robert. It's just been wonderful because it's like it brings me back to, it's like I didn't have a clue. And
What we were thinking, us guys?
Yeah, but she won't let me tell you those kind of stories.
no, I won't.
She's so... it's okay for you to tell the stories.
You know, I'm so uptight, but you give us the freedom in your stories. I love that.
Thank you.
To really
But I think what I said at the beginning about Brother Blue and Ruth is none of this would happen, right? All of this is because of them. What they give us, and, they praise us, but the praise really comes back to them because, yeah, they're amazing.
I don't want to wear you out.
There wouldn't be any storytelling in this area.
No.
If it weren't for Blue and Ruth.
No, and nobody could hold it together like they do.
Let me tell you something. You see this man up here? You think you know me. I'm a wild man.
Yes, he is.
I shouldn't even be here.
Tame the beast.
Because guess what? What I'm doing.
Laura's gone.
You know about Laura? She's real. That's a real woman. You know the word mensch? Laura's had. See, that woman is real.
Yeah.
So I'm going any further. By the way, you see that woman over there?
She's another.
I adore that lady. Now I'm married myself because I don't hate her because I'm a rough guy. Look, she's always working on me to get me to cut my toenails, not to get up the morning, to clean out, the trash out of my nail. How many have fallen out of bed? Just fallen out of bed. And by the way, when you fall out and stay there, I didn't even wake up. She finally on the
Didn't wake up.
She said,
Didn't wake up.
just. What do you do? I was reading something like that, busy, and I'm in bed, and I started getting, and common sense said, why fight gravity? I'm gonna lay right here when I was reading. And he said to me, you are a disgrace. You shame the people. I can't take you no place. I said, watch your language over here. Not any place. It's because you behave like this. You throw back, you're sitting up back. I said, well, that's me. I'm a natural lover, cover to cover. I'm trying. If I behave okay in my group. I'll say this to you, I don't want to bore you out. You storytellers, if you can find someone who cares for you seriously, with a lot of common sense like you, find that person, because if you're really into storytelling, there are going to be moments when you feel like you should die. That person is there at 3 o'clock in the morning, says, come on, you gotta go. She's moving. But I'm tired. She'll get the stuff, and we go. And she is the story. You can forget Blue. She lives. She's not going to tell the story. She is the story. She's ever faithful. And she puts up with me. So anyway, now what we're going to, I don't want to wear it out, but this is beautiful. You're blessed by him.
Next week.
Next week.
We gotta do something first.
We gotta do this.
We got no words.
I got the order here already. Yo, my dog, singer poet, Brother Blue. Give our regards to.
Or you the king. You're the king.
We'll take this into ourselves and we'll come down and walk along
There'd be
with
none
it.
of us without you.
Into the
We'll travel
dark
across the
night.
world. We'll go across the world and we'll share these stories. And help all of those who listen fall in love with all people. We're all in the human race. As these colors we wear, there's something that's forever and ever. It's beautiful. Some call it the soul. It's forever and ever. Next week, our storyteller.
Robert Smith.
Robert Smith.
Yeah, I hope he makes it. He works at Porter Square Books now. He's been working Tuesday nights. And that's
He's
why
a
I
dear
didn't see
man.
him. But he
He's
said,
been in Syria.
I know he was
That's
going to
right,
go
he
there,
did go.
but before
I
he,
like that man.
he wasn't here coming because he was working Tuesday
Has
night.
he gone already?
I think so, yeah.
And one thing more about Blue, when I like you, I love you. I said, I'll die for someone. That's what I am. How many have said to your love, I'll die for you?
Don't you die.
No, I tell you, I'll give you something right. I've already died. She's I work so hard. Of course, she's the truth. She is the story. She walks out and she's real. She's real.
Okay.
Next week.
Yeah, please, we need to tell you, man. God's to tell you. Next week,
Next week.
at the same time,
At the same time.
in the same place,
In the same place.
if the good Lord's willing,
If the good Lord's willing.
if the creek don't rise,
Do-do-do-do rise.
even if it do rise,
Even if it do rise. We're gonna do it.
we're gonna get it.
We're gonna get it.
We're gonna hit it.
We're gonna hit it.
One more time. Thank you.
Good night.
Amazing, Brother Blue. Amazing. You are amazing.
You guys are very beautiful.
Yep.
Guess what? I'll say to you this right now. You, dear ones, storytellers, perhaps can change the world.
You did it.
So we fall in love with all people. You have to love this guy.
You did it, Brother Blue.
I love you. Now, I'll tell you something.
Hey, Robert.
Even
You
though
were in
this
love
may sound
with Mrs.
absurd,
Side
I
only
think
because you didn't know
storytellers
Mrs.
will
Levy.
get past
Who lived 2 apartments down from me. If you knew Mrs. Levy,
I would have forgotten Mrs. Side.
you would forget Mrs. Side in an instant.
Oh my God, I mean Mrs. Levy.